April 1945. The final chapter of World War II in Europe is about to be written in blood and fire. The city is Berlin, the capital of a collapsing empire. This is the story of the downfall, the climactic battle that would finally end the Nazi regime. For months, the Soviet Red Army had been pushing relentlessly from the east. After the brutal fighting at the Seelow Heights, the last major defensive line outside Berlin, the path to the city was open. On April 20th, Hitler's 56th birthday, the first Soviet artillery shells rained down on the heart of Berlin. The celebration in the Vorbunker was short-lived. The party was over. The end was here. Inside the city, a desperate and bizarre defense was being assembled. The defenders were a motley crew, weary Wehrmacht soldiers, hardened SS fanatics, and the Volkssturm, the People's Storm, made up of old men and young boys, some barely in their teens. Armed with single-shot Panzerfausts and little else, they were thrown against a tidal wave of Soviet steel. Over 1.5 million Soviet soldiers, backed by thousands of tanks and aircraft, began to encircle and suffocate the city. The fighting was savage, street by street, block by block. Berlin's wide avenues became killing fields, and its apartment buildings turned into fortresses. The Soviets had learned hard lessons from Stalingrad and applied them with brutal efficiency. They moved through buildings, blasting holes in walls to avoid the open streets, a tactic they called hugging the enemy. The German defenders, though outnumbered and outgunned, fought with the ferocity of the doomed. They knew surrender meant a trip to the Siberian gulag, so they fought to the last man, the last bullet. Meanwhile, deep beneath the Reich Chancellery, in the claustrophobic confines of the Vorbunker, reality was collapsing. Hitler, increasingly detached and delusional, moved phantom armies on his maps, issuing orders to divisions that no longer existed. His generals knew the war was lost, but the Führers will keep the pointless slaughter going. As the Red Army closed in, the bunker became the final stage for the Nazi leadership's personal dramas of betrayal, loyalty, and suicide. On April 30th, with Soviet soldiers just a few hundred meters away, fighting for control of the Reichstag, Adolf Hitler and Eva Braun took their own lives. Their bodies were burned in the Chancellery Garden as artillery shells exploded around them. The symbolic heart of the Nazi regime had stopped beating. Even with Hitler gone, the fighting didn't stop immediately. Fanatical SS units continued to resist, but the city's main defense commander, General Weidling, finally defied Hitler's last orders to fight to the death. On May 2nd, he officially surrendered the city to the Soviets. After 12 days of relentless combat, the Battle of Berlin was over. The cost was immense. Hundreds of thousands of soldiers and civilians were dead. The city was a wasteland of rubble and smoke. But out of these ashes, the war in Europe was finally concluded. The Battle of Berlin wasn't just a military victory. It was the final, violent exorcism of a dark ideology that had plunged the world into chaos. It marked the definitive end of the Third Reich and the beginning of a new, uncertain era for Germany and the world.